Welcome to Echoes and Roots. I'm Sabine, and I guide you back to nature, to your inner wisdom, and our ancestral ways of living in harmony with Mother Earth and the cosmos. Hello, and welcome everyone to this episode on stepping out of ego facades in spirituality. Now, ego facades can actually be found anywhere, and so what I'm sharing today applies to any kind of faith, group setting, anything really in life. And I was just pondering again on what is actually spirituality in itself. And then we're going to go into why ego facades are also actually quite prominent in spirituality. So spirituality in itself is simply that we are believing in something that is greater than us, and that we look for meaning and also for our values beyond the material world. And that is actually something really, I think, intrinsically human. And it's also actually something that gives us balance, that we look that we don't just live in a material world, because we can see if we attach ourselves too much to the material world alone, that we very easily go into lives that become a life of consumerism, and consumerism harms our planet. And it also harms others. Our world, our Western world, our Western consumerism is built on exploitation of other nations and other countries. So, and us attaching all our values just to the material world is also it's harming the planet. B, it is very unfulfilling to us. So I think it's absolutely total natural to us to actually look for values outside of that material world, and also to know we are part of something bigger. You know, it gives us humbleness, it gives us also understanding, it gives us hope, because we know we're not just dying. Also it gives us the understanding that our actions, our thoughts, they impact others, because they do. So in itself, this spiritual foundation, I think it's so intrinsic to humans, it's so important to us. And actually we find this in all of the religions around the world, because when you look at the religions, and yes, there's many distorted teachings, and there is a lot of the ego facades in the religious setting too, when it comes to hierarchies and all of these things, and power abuse, right? But when you look back at why are we feeling often so drawn towards a certain faith, it's for the community, because we are really social beings. We really thrive also in community, but it's also because we look for meaning, and we look for belonging, we look for meaning. And often we are also reminded in these settings that there is more to life. And often when you look at some of the better, I would say the better teachings of the different religions, they do remind us that the material world isn't everything, and that we shouldn't attach ourselves too much to the material world. And it also helps us to go through life situations such as losing someone, grieving, death, like this cycle that we're in, this birth and death cycle. I think knowing that there is more to life, knowing it isn't just this, because the life and death, the physicality, right, that's the material plane, right? So knowing there is more to it helps us to move through these transitions. So there is something so profound, natural in spirituality that, but then, as I said, there it also gets out of hand at times when it comes to the spiritual ego. Because the spiritual ego is, in fact, the most dangerous ego we have. Because the spiritual ego has so much power over others. And this is where we start seeing playing out some things, not just in religious settings, but especially also in the New Age and other spiritual belief systems, because it isn't just the New Age, right? There is a variety of different spiritual belief systems out there. And there we get into, so let's have a look at the ego facades that often creates cults. And cults are harmful. We know this. I've been in a spiritual cult, and I can definitely say I do not recommend this experience to anyone. So that's why I'm also talking about this, to teach people what are the mechanics behind this and why are we ending up in a cult in the first place, and why are they also appearing again and again and again. So let's look at this again. So when it comes to the facades that we often also, like even the ego that we build up for ourselves, right? Especially in the New Age, there is so much ego build up into the persona we out of a sudden are. And then this persona isn't just an ego build up. It's also how we create division when we attach ourselves too much with that persona. So I'm now spiritual, so I now need to be vegan, I can't do vaccines, I can't, like, this is the New Age, right? I need to have crystals, you know, I need to be against this, and everybody else who is not doing that is like sheeps and don't know anything, they're not awakened. And so we're building up a persona based on our ego, and then creating division. And the same is sometimes if religion goes the wrong way, right? It becomes too fundamental. It's like, oh, my teachings is the only right teachings, and all other religions are bad, therefore. Which is, no, you know, like all other religions go back to the same source. It goes back to initially the same understanding of the universe, and yet then it's got kind of had its own flavor, and there's a lot of distorted teachings everywhere, also especially in the New Age, in any kind of faith belief system on our planet. As we have duality, right? You need to understand all teachings have a lot of distortions in it. And so we're finding this, and then things get instrumentalized, right? And we are saying the only thing that what I'm believing, what I'm doing is the only right way, and everything else, and we demonize everybody else because like everybody else is bad and everybody else is doing all the damage on the planet, or you know, it's responsible, everybody is responsible for the problems on the planet. It's very much the spiritual ego very easily can how do I even say this, deflect responsibility outside of itself, instead of going back inside and being like, look, what is my contribution here to the world and to especially my immediate community? No, I'm putting the blame on everybody else. And let's look at some of the ego constructs we find, especially in the modern New Age world, because, you know, that's the world I'm coming out from. That's where I had quite some interesting experience in. And a lot of you listening to me, I assume you will, everybody here will have gotten some sort of flavor of that world. So, okay, first one of the main narratives, the chosen ones. Okay, this main narrative is so common. We are the chosen ones. You know, you find it as we had the 144. We are here to save the planet. We are the indigo children, the ones with the special DNA. We are the ones, that have been chosen by God. And that was especially part of the cult I was in. This was the main narrative, the chosen ones, the special ones. And that narrative hooks onto that spiritual narrative, the chosen ones, the special ones, the saviors, hooks onto your own trauma. So I can speak now for myself, and it hooked onto, it's basically, you know, wounds of being different, feeling not seen, feeling not heard, maybe having been bullied, feeling like an outsider, and out of a sudden they're like, oh, but you know, I'm special, I'm the chosen one. and validates, you know, like feels like I'm validated out of a sudden. I'm a special mission. This whole savior narrative as well. Like I am saving the planet, or we are saving the planet, you know, and that gives us, this is also interesting, it gives us out of a sudden like a value that we exist, you know, but no, there are no chosen ones. There are no chosen ones. This is a total narrative that comes out of a very hierarchical system. We also find this a little bit in different religions, right? When you look at, oh, I'm the representative of God, like the Pope, you know. And you find this everywhere. You find this also with, like, in the elite circles especially as well, like, oh, we are the chosen bloodlines. And well, they work with some very not so good underworld demons and stuff like that, but they are also feeling they're the chosen ones by those gods that they believe in, you know. So it's the same narrative again and again. We are special, but it really is just trying to put a plaster on us feeling inadequate, us not seeing ourselves, us feeling not worthy, you know. And when you step into that narrative, like what you really, or when you see that narrative coming up, what really it invites is to look at yourself and feel like, where does this hook onto in myself that I need to believe in this narrative? And what are the pain? What is the pain inside of me that makes me believe I'm chosen? Or like a specific group or the belief system I believe in is the chosen ones, you know. There's a lot of secret societies. Cults are built on this, especially the cult leader. He's always the chosen one. The whole Messiah narrative is based on this, you know. The Messiah narrative is based on two things. There's a chosen one, though these are the ones who believe to be the Messiah. And then there's the ones who believe in a savior, which is a whole narrative that comes down from religion. That is like, you know, we are, again, it's just like outside, you know, like we are being saved by something outside of us. No. No. There is nothing ever saving us that's outside of us. We are the ones, you know, who need to save ourselves. But the Messiah is the Messiah idea really plays into this very well, you know, and it's coming from some very hierarchical systems, and very Metatronic. It's coming from the Metatronic system. This whole narrative, this narrative of the chosen ones too, because, you know, that's hierarchy too in itself, and being special, and it's really the especially the spiritual ego, whoa, you know. And this comes also into the guru. The whole guru narrative, this is massive. This is also already coming out of certain faith systems, certain religions, and is similar to the Messiah one, you know. But then I'm a reincarnation of this and this guy, and this is guru, and the guru narrative is the same. Again, the guru is the chosen one, right? What he is saying is right. And then the followers, again, they thinking that if I just listen to this person, if I hug this person, if I like be close to this person, you know, if I'm devoted to these teachings, I am gonna be saved. Like, saved of what? You know, as if that person was the solution to my problems. But the solution to our problems is always ourselves. Is us ourselves. It's almost literally we are running away from our own responsibility, but also our own power. We are outsourcing our power with all these cults, these ego, like the Messiah, the whatever. It's like we are, and also the different gods we are believing in, right? Again, it's like very often it can really quickly go into, I am outsourcing my power. I am blindly just following, and this holds true also for political movements and all kind of stuff, blindly following what someone else says because he has the solution. You know, he is some sort of savior. There's also some people who believe in certain political figures are going to save us. No, it's always us who needs to It's always us who needs to make the change in the world and who needs to start being responsible. Like we literally, as humans, I don't know why, we are constantly running away from our own responsibility, but also our own power and the God spark within us. That intelligence that is within all of us. We're constantly running away. We're putting it everywhere else. We're putting it at crystal. The crystal's going to save my life. They're like, I'm dressing up like a shaman and now I have an identity. Now I'm someone, like we're constantly running away from who we are deep down and just showing ourselves and being like, that's enough. Like, this is also another thing of these ego identities, right? Like, because we are thinking we are not enough, we are not good enough as that what we are. So we're building up this identity of, I'm not the healer, I'm not the shaman, I'm dressing up like, oh my God, it's so funny when you sometimes look at Instagram and like, oh my God, where have you all shopped? You forget all dress. Yeah, always like, it's always this identity, like, if I'm a shaman, I need to dress a certain way. If I'm like, I don't know, divine feminine, I'm dressing that way. And it's all just like identities, build up. And it's so interesting. We are like our own programs, as I say, analyzing ourselves is going to be like, it's going to be like, oh my God. But it's at the same time, like we can at least have a laugh about ourselves because we all have the same sort of wounds, that make us do these things. So as I said, we're building up these outside identities, right? Because we think we are just not enough and we are not even worthy enough of existence just for being here. And being like the person we truly are with our own creativity. And how many people just regurgitate what someone else is saying, right? Because I don't know, are they too scared to tap into their own creativity, into their own inner knowing, into, like, that's the same, for instance, with channeling, totally outsourcing our power. Firstly, I now believe, after my experience in the New Age, majority of channeled information is just fallen angelics, darkness disguised as light. But okay, whatever anybody believes. But the thing is, the point is, we are outsourcing. We are outsourcing our authority, our power, just listening to whoever is going to show up there and pretend I'm little angel. Sorry, but I'm really having my fun with this these days because I'm like, thank God I'm safe from listening to one more angel message, because I'm sorry, I'm listening to that here within me. That, that intelligence that is within us, it's within all of us. I don't need all these cards, all these crystals, all this whatever. No, there is intelligence within me that can steer my life, and it's really like, we are really, sometimes I'm thinking as humanity, or sometimes like, are we like, just, I almost like feel we are children growing up, where like, can we learn like that we can trust ourselves, that we have faith in ourselves, that we just love ourselves, accept ourselves, so we don't constantly outsource power and give it away to others, and then we complain about, a couple of 100 years later, we complain about that we are like being abused and like we have all these control systems. Yeah, but we are also outsourcing our power in the first place, right? So, and now it's also on us to say like no to the systems and structures that are unhealthy. So, wait, let me come back to, we were at the cults. We were talking about the cults and the messiahs and saviors and whatever, and the guru. Oh my God, yes, the guru. And you know what is so interesting? What you have with so many of these cults and guru type personalities very often is actually very, like, we think they are the bloody angel, they are so good because it's the image they portray, but behind the closed doors, they're the most narcissistic people ever. Because who is falling for these narratives? The top ones usually are the ones who are super narcissistic. Now, we all are on a spectrum of narcissism. We all have to, I think, when we take an honest look at ourselves, have some narcissistic tendencies, but there are spectrums. And usually with these cult leaders, you find some really, really messed up narcissistic people. And then you have all these scandals, and they come out and you find, oh my god, there's sexual abuse. Like, look at the yoga world. Scandal after scandal after scandal, where again, there, because the yoga world as well, like, puts people on pedestals, right? It's like there's a lot of fake facades, like, if I just look good and be a little bit flexible, you know, I'm an influencer. There's a lot of fake facades. Then then there's all this guru mentality, you know, and then out of a sudden all these stories come out about these people actually having money fraud, having sexually abused people, and everybody's shocked. But you know, there's scandal after scandal. Why are we still shocked? Because the mechanics behind this is very simple in a way. So I've been reading this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, and I really enjoy it because it talks about these archetypes that actually stand behind that kind of behavior. So one of these archetypes, and these archetypes we see in the world, and we have a Venus. And the one that is behind the narcissistic guru, right, the manipulative, lying one, is the predator. And it's so interesting. The other day I was watching an interview of, you know, two of the wives. One was like some sort of a yoga guru, one of sort of a yoga guru, and the other one was of CAP, Kundalini activation process. That guy, like Van Wong, he's one of it. I don't know how many wives he had. One of his ex-wives, and they were clearly saying how these guys, like Van Wong, and then there was some other guru, you know, yoga guru, how they were just super narcissistic, manipulating, lying, sleeping with everybody, you know, other than their wives, like super sexual, you know, like it's just all in the wrong ways. And it took the wives, that's why this thing, and they were the typical predators. So what does predator do? First, it's like the love bombing, you know. Predator does all the love bombing. And in the story, or in the book of the Women Who Run with the Wolves, there is this really interesting, I think it's coming from fairy tale story of, you know, that girl that was charmed by this guy. So that is really interesting. With the predator, what we have is we have an inkling, but we override our intuition. I did exactly the same. When I joined the cult, I had, like, the cult leader, I've never felt so much fear in my body when I met this person than ever before. And I overrode it. I overrode my own intuition. Why? In favor of, well, he was playing into some of my wounds, right? Oh, we're all special. But also, and that's another important thing with these narcissistic cult leaders, they always have people around them that literally whitewash their image. And very often, unfortunately, and people that kind of keep their appearance up, and people that also recruit others into these cults, and very often, unfortunately, these are women. This day and age, we cannot trust the opinion of another woman. So I had exactly the same. His right hand, flying monkey, they are called, when you look at the narcissistic thing, another woman who seemed to be super sweet had befriended me, and every single time I would voice a concern about the person at the top, she would be like, no, he's the nicest guy, you know, that he's the nicest guy ever, so kind, so family oriented, and again, because she had befriended me and she seemed to be nice, I overrode again my intuition. But she was just playing into his narrative, you know, like, and this is for me, that was one of the hardest things to heal, is not the betrayal, because when you deal with a narcissistic person, a manipulative person, there's so many lies, and it's really, when you wake up to this, it's oh my god, like, but it wasn't the betrayal of the man, it was the betrayal of the woman, you know. But either way, this is the times we are in. This is what we have to learn. We cannot just blindly trust the opinion of other women, because that is exactly the point. As women, we are very often, that was also my case, not initiated into this predator behavior, meaning we override our intuition. That's exactly what I did, right? And these two women, they, like these ex-wives, telling exactly the same story. They felt, and that's why the spiritual world is so dangerous, they also felt there is something wrong here, he's lying, he's like not in integrity, whatever. And then when you voice it, and I had exactly the same, when you voice it to the predator person, to the narcissistic cult leader, what do? They basically use spiritual powers, and they use black magic and all kind of things, but this is more about like emotional manipulation. They use spiritual things to tell you like, oh, you are not evolved enough. You are like, that triggers your experiences, your own wounds. You're projecting. And that's why the spiritual ego is the most dangerous one. Because these people, these guru types, using all of these tactics for us to basically think there's something wrong with me, I'm not evolved enough, I'm not healed enough, whatever, blah, blah, blah. To basically make us doubt ourselves and doubt our intuition. And your intuition is actually the most important thing you ought to develop in this day and age here, because we're living in the times where we have a ton amount of deception. And I also said this for 2026 in my forecast. This is a year where we're going to be bombarded with more deceptions and more manipulation and lies than ever. So we better sharpen and learn to listen to our intuition, especially as women. But it's also true for men, right? So that we actually don't fall prey to this predator behavior. Now, the next thing that's so interesting, so in the story with the Riding with the Wolves in the book, what happens next? So at the beginning is always the love bombing. As I said, that's the love bombing. It's the same with like the new age, like the golden age narrative. It's a love bombing narrative, sorry to say that, but it's just love bombing. So anyway, so you have the love bombing, at the beginning they're all nice, and then comes in the manipulation, and that is the moment, and you start to see some truth, and that is the moment that you actually need to take action. So in the story, the girl has initial doubts about this man that she's meeting, but she overrides it because he's dining her, and he's dining her family and her sisters and her mother, and they have a little bit doubts about him. But then because he's like rich, right? He has a castle, he's dining them, blah, blah, blah. No, he must be good, so she marries the guy. And then he tells her, like, this story is so good, like, he goes away and he gives her a set of keys to all of the rooms, but she's not allowed to use one key and find that room. She's like, you just don't touch it. And that's a similar thing. They always want to, these guru types of people, a spiritual ego wants to keep you actually in certain parameters where you can be controlled. So don't, discover any narrative outside of us. It's the same sometimes with religion. Like, you only study what we say. You don't study what the others say. That's why we make it sound as if anything the others are saying is wrong, right? Because we don't want you to look outside the box and learn a bit more, because that could make you start questioning our narrative. It's the same with so many directions. It's like, we are always like meant to, like, it's the same with the mainstream narrative of history. Like, oh my God, everything else is just, it's the, how do they call it? Complot theory. No, it's called different, right? But yeah, they basically downtel and say it's not true, right? Because they don't want people to look outside the box, because well, that could lead them down a path. But so the thing is, but of course the girl luckily kept her curiosity. That is so very important for us. We keep on having curiosity and ask questions and investigate. Investigating is a very good thing. Having some judgments actually on people, like when it comes to your first, like, this was so interesting for me. When I first met the cult leader, I had to look at his Instagram, and I just looked at the pictures and stuff, and I was like, this is a person I would never usually talk to, because his friends look all dodgy. Like the pictures he posts is just like, but again, I overwrote this, and I was like, I shouldn't be so judgmental. Like, no, I should have followed my judgment, because my judgment, sometimes, protects me. So that's why I'm saying it's not bad to have some sort of defined value system and have some judgment, that you can follow. So anyway, the girl, and curiosity, investigate. Nowadays, anyone I'm following, any teachings I come across, I very thoroughly investigate them. I have so much pleasure digging up dirt about people, because I want to know, who is this person. I'm not going to blindly trust anyone anymore. I'm sorry, no. So, and I think that's actually an attitude that we all should be developing, because then we would fall less prey to these kind of ego, narcissistic ego, spiritual ego driven people and cults and what kind of all these things out there, right? So anyway, the girl has now this whole set of keys and she is like, and she's curious, right? She is not going to follow his orders, exactly, because why should we just follow anyone's orders blindly? Especially if they're telling us we shouldn't be doing certain things. Do they know? Do they really have our best interest at heart? So she and her sisters don't follow the order. They, of course, find the room that fits that little key that he had forbidden. And what do they find inside? Whoop! A bunch of skeletons of corpses of his previous wives. So he turns out to be not to be that nice rich guy. No, he is a mass murderer that kills all of his wives. Now, here comes the exposure, right? Now what does she do? This is so interesting, because the first thing she does, and this is something we all do when we see exposure, especially when it absolutely shatters our worldview, because this is, of course, shattering your worldview. You think that person is like decent and nice, and that's why I'm also saying a lot of the disclosure we're gonna have in the coming years is gonna shatter so many people's worldview, because they think, oh, this politician was always so nice, and then you find out, well, he was abusing some children all along for many years. And what do many people then do? Unfortunately, they just shut down. They shut down and they want to forget what they saw and discovered. And that just makes them, well, they just become then more and more the victim. And why, and this is something that I'm really trying to understand, is why do people shut down from really harsh truths at times? And I think it really has to do with how much are you ready to face darkness within yourself and outside. Because when you do some inner work and you face your own darkness, that's also what I had to do about the cult. I had to really go inside. Why did I override my intuition? Why did I believe what they said? Why? Like, there are so many things that where my own shadows were mirrored in that experience. And looking at your own shadows isn't pretty. You discover, oh my God, there's some really messed up beliefs I'm having. And, there's some really things that are not serving me. And it just isn't pretty to accept, like, same with the girl, right? For her looking back, oh my God, why did I marry this guy? Just because, I wanted to live in a castle. And I wanted to have a seemingly fancy life, like, when you have to face those own shadows, it's not, as I said, it's not pretty, it's not easy. And that's why most people run, because they're not ready to face the darkness, and then they cannot face the darkness in the world. But it's actually, I think, it's the most important work we ought to do, is to face our own little demons, and to be in that process, like, kind of loving and gentle with ourselves, because we all have our issues. We just all make mistakes and go through some interesting experiences in life, and we all, as I always think, we all are able to commit the greatest sins and crimes because of the darkness we carry, the demons we carry inside of us. And getting to know these demons is the biggest favor you can do to yourself, because then they lose their power. Because if you refuse to get to know your own inner demons and your own inner shadows, they're gonna run you from the background, from your subconscious. And that's not a great thing, because then you get from one cult into the next, from one narcissistic partner to the next, because you haven't understood what is it in me in the first place that makes me attracted to an energy that is harmful. Why am I attracted to the love bombing? Why do I need that? Why do I need to feel outside validation, need to feel special? If I keep on being attracted to that, yeah, I'm going to meet another next, Dumbo. Sorry. But you know what I mean. So, there was the girl. Again, exactly, the girl. So, but the girl, she did not close her eyes on it. So the girl, of course, being scared. So then husband comes back home, discovers, girl has discovered, has not followed his orders, had disobeyed his orders, opened the door, found the key. And so he decides, well, she needs to be killed too, just like all his ex-wives. So she's really like, but she's being smart. She's getting smart. She asks some time from him. She's like, let me just prepare for my death. And in that time, she really gathers up all the strength. And that is what I also want to tell you. Like, when you go through this experience and even recognizing, oh my God, I was attracted to these kind of cult settings, because we have, in the spiritual world, we have so many. In the yoga world, everywhere. They are everywhere. These kind of manipulative cult leaders are just everywhere. As I said, spiritual ego, So anyway, when you decide, I was attracted to that, I was following that, and then, but you are like brave enough to face yourself and face your own inner demons that got you into that place in the first place. Then actually you set yourself free. So she asks, sometimes she's smart. And then in that time, she calls upon her brothers, and her brothers just come in time to kill the guy. And she's saved. So, but she is really courageous, she's courageous. She's facing that. She discovered this, that out of that she now has to face the fact that he's a mass murderer, and she has to deal with it. She has to get herself out of the situation. She could have also pretended, she tried to actually hide the key, pretended, oh, I've never found the room. That's what many of us on the planet do when we have this closure. We pretend, oh, it doesn't happen. And then we attack the victims like, oh, what this woman is saying isn't true. He seems such a nice person. He could have never abused, or committed fraud, like money fraud or whatever. We just close our eyes, and then I'm like, yeah, but hello, hello. This doesn't lead us into anything better. It just leads into the next scandal. So, yeah. This was like it is not an easy subject to talk about, because, it means like facing, all of the programs that are underlining this, and when we engage in any kind of faith, religion, spiritual, but it's actually any kind of groups, like stuff like Amway, also cults, like they are everywhere, it's just everywhere. This kind of, I'm saying, like us being a little bit awake, knowing where these things can hook onto, and where we also, sometimes it's also part of wanting to belong somewhere, wanting to belong in a group. And that is, again, it's very human, it's us. I think this is one of the most threatening things for us, is not being part of the group, because it meant in the past that we would not survive if we didn't have the protection of the group. And so now, and that's why also in group dynamics you see this in the Second World War, everywhere, right? Where in group dynamics people commit the most horrific crimes, and do things that they would never do by themselves. But it's because of that kind of like the group pressure, but desperately wanting to be part of the group. And it's very scary for us to go a different way and to basically say, no, this does not agree with me. This does not feel right with me, and I decide to go against the group. That's extremely courageous. And in this DNA, it does not mean we're not going to survive anymore. We also need to recognize we live in different times now, Like, we don't need to always act up on these survival mechanics that are also imprinted in our DNA. We can now make different choices. So yeah, I think that's all. Pretty much. I'm just thinking if there's anything else I want to say about the ego facade, and even investigating why ourselves, if we find ourselves in whatever kind of spiritual ego we put ourselves in, as, I don't know, the healer or whatever, to ask ourselves, why do we need that ego identity? What is it? Like, why do we think we need that to get validation, or to even be trusted, or to get clients or whatever? What is it that we just don't believe enough that we are as our in selves, like as our individuals with our just own very unique ways? We are all very unique. We have a unique creativity. That's what I'm saying. Yes, we are social beings, but we're also very unique. So why don't we think that we, in our own unique way, are just good enough? We're good enough. And we can, if group dynamics become too much cultish and unhealthy, we can just step out of it. We don't need it anymore for our survival. Last thing to say, if you feel called to work with me, my next upcoming course is Healing with Veils. So that doesn't really fit in this program, but that course, it is a training into your intuition, because as I said, our intuition actually protects us. Our intuition is really, really important. And in that course, we're training our intuition, we do dream work, we're engaging with veils, because veils are so beautiful. There's so much wisdom in them. We're working with the water element. We're going to engage in some body work. We're going to engage in some healing harp music, and it's really nice. It's a group setting, and it starts for February. There is still until, I think, only end of this weekend, 19 January, I think. There's still early bird price, so you can check it out. It's in the show notes. And thanks so much for being here. And I wish you all a beautiful week ahead, and hopefully see you in this space next time. Bye-bye. Follow me on Instagram at Echoes and Roots for grounded spirituality, ancient wisdom,